Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Real Talks. I'm your host, David Steele. Um, it's a good day. I hope everybody had a fantastic day. So, decided to change it up a little bit. Come on a little later, so maybe you guys can watch because I know in the middle of the day it's not the most advantageous time for you. So we're gonna try that for maybe a couple days and see what happens. And who knows? We might actually start coming on right around this time every day. So, as I said, I hope everybody had a fantastic day, fantastic weekend, and we got a lot of stuff to get to. And I get some news after, so stick around for that at the end of the show. Okay, so one of our first topics, or our first topic of the day, is going to be the film that just premiered this last weekend, and that was Dungeons and Dragons. And let me preface by saying this: this is a film so the film had been out 20 some odd years ago, and they said, "Oh no, you're going to do it again." But it was very interesting to see if it was going to be successful because we didn't know. The first one was not a success to say the least, and so the thought was, okay, well, how is this one going to do? So let me break it down. It's going to be a little different in how we're going to do this from now on. So, according to THR, okay, Dungeons and Dragons opened okay with $38.5 million. Dungeons and Dragons opened Honor Among Thieves opened to an honorable enough $38.5 million domestic box office, enough to take out John Wick Chapter 4 and top the box office. The big budget movie, based on Hasbro's fantasy desktop game, came in ahead of expectations, but will still need strong legs throughout April and May in order to launch a new franchise for Paramount after E1 costing about $150 million to produce before marketing. Dungeons and Dragons certainly has its chance. It earned stellar reviews with an A- cinema score from audiences. Upcoming spring breaks and the Easter holiday will be another advantage, but adapting games that have already been a tricky business. Last year's Sony Uncharted debuted at $44 million domestic and on its way to ultimately being considered a success. Headed into the weekend, D&D was tracking to open with a muted $30 million domestic. Whatever the ultimate outcome was, it expands the overall D&D universe for Hasbro. Overall, the movie debuted with $33 million from 60 territories, representing 83% of the marketplace. Representing 83% of the marketplace for a global bow of $71.5 million, which isn't bad. Among the countries where it debuted number one, the UK led with a strong 4.3 million. China was disappointing at 5 million, and some other countries. Paramount is distributing the picture everywhere except for the United Kingdom, where E1 is handling it. So then it goes on to the director and the cast. More than 60% of the ticket buyers were male, not surprising there. While the largest group was 18 to 34 at 31%, those ages between 25 to 34 followed at 28%. In the United States, the film outperformed in the West, the mountain region, and the Midwest, where under-indicating in the Northeast and the Southeast. D&D's overall index in Western Canada. Adopting a brand as huge as D&D for the big screen presents both advantages and challenges, with a massive built-in global fan base for the iconic RPG phenomenon, offering up a huge potential for audiences of die-hard aficionados, while attempting to draw a crossover audience from the non-initiated to the multiplex, said Comscore analysts. The good news is that the fantastic reviews and a solid in-theater experience will likely result in long-term playability. So then it goes on to say what happened. So let's see. Warner Brothers and DC Shazam finished at 6th with 4.7. John Wick, which finished number one last week, fell 62% to $28 million in its second outing, which is not bad. Really, for that debut, it's not bad. At the foreign box office, it took in another $35 million from 75 countries, and it goes down the list. So let's talk about this real quick because I think it's important. The fact is that you have a franchise. Well, I shouldn't say franchise. You have a movie that isn't that well known. It's well known. Let me rephrase that. It's very well known. The question is, though, would it be received well? And there were not high expectations for this. There just weren't. And so I think this $30.5 million is great. I think that this is a solid opening. Now, is it going to make back its whole $150 million? Probably. It will probably finish around $200 million, when it's all said and done, $250 million. I just hope that it continues. Truth be told, I played D&D when I was a kid. I liked it. I never got into it hardcore. And I think that when you do that, um, it was one of those things that um, it's hard. I mean, it's you have to be very skilled. Let me tell you that. I mean, from what I remember, um, and I saw it here yesterday and was surprisingly good. Yeah, I have no doubt that um, it's a fantastic movie, and I think it's going to have its audiences. As I was reading in that piece, okay, you're talking about a very young demographic. Nearly a third of those people, nearly a third of the audience was not only predominantly male, but it was 18 to 24. So I mean, 18 to 34 is exactly the market they were trying to hit, and those are the people that are going to drive the box office. Um, I think it's going to be good. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with how this plays out because I think there's no doubt. I mean, it may not be a huge franchise, but I think it could be a franchise that it has a niche for. And if that would be impressive to see. The only references I know from D&D are from Stranger Things. I haven't even watched Stranger Things. So, Coco, you got one on me. But yeah, I think this is going to be a blast, and I think this is going to really do well. It's going to be interesting to see what it does next week because we got a ton of great stuff, and I'll get to that stuff later on the show. But yeah, I think it will do really well. What do you guys think? Did you go see Dungeons and Dragons? If so, what did you think of it? Would you go back and see it again? Did you play Dungeons and Dragons, or are you in a D&D group now? Leave your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody. Okay, so let's move on to our next story. And this one is... So let me preface it by saying this. The fall season for movies are going to be packed. So big. And one of the biggest movies that really isn't being talked about is a little movie called Napoleon. And, um, this is, of course, we have Joaquin Phoenix being, the winning Best Actor a couple years ago. Ridley Scott making another fantastic film, I think. And one thing that, is of to be talked about. If you go back and look at all of the biopic winners, male and female, over the past, I would say, 10 years, we have had a lot of them. I mean, a lot of them. I mean, go back to, all the way back to '08 with The Darkest Hour and Gary Oldman. We had a couple years ago, we had Raleigh Malek with Bohemian Rhapsody. Um, Judy, with Renee Zellweger winning Best Actress. Just a couple years ago, you had Jessica Chastain winning for The Eyes of Tammy Faye. So this is going to be something. We've got a movie coming out that I can't talk about that it's going to be really, really good and should win and definitely get very close to double-digit nominations. So we're going to have another biopic here. And this one's going to be a little different, though. So this one is, of course, the title of the film is Napoleon, and it's an Apple original set for November, and it's going to get a theatrical release. So, according to Deadline, Apple Original Films have partnered with Sony Pictures Entertainment and set a November 22nd worldwide theatrical release for Napoleon, the historical action epic directed by Ridley Scott that stars Joaquin Phoenix as the French conqueror Napoleon Bonaparte and Vanessa Kirby as Empress Josephine. Now, Vanessa Kirby, if you're not aware of her, if blanking on it, she was played the White Widow in the last Mission Impossible and Rogue Nation. After the theatrical run, the film will begin to stream globally on Apple Television. This becomes the second award season film from Apple set for an ambitious theatrical run after the Cannes-bound Martin Scorsese directed Killers of the Flower Moon was set for a late October release through Paramount Pictures. Paramount has had some, quote, killer rights and has always been a part of the Apple deal. But this is the first time Apple went out and aligned with one off-distribution deal. Sony's Tom Rothman worked often with Scott when the filmmakers Scott Free, which is their production company, was based at Fox. He was primed to help maximize the award chances of the director, who hasn't yet won an Oscar, but has not been nominated. But has been nominated 3 times for Thelma and Louise, Gladiator, and Black Hawk Down. And of course, Gladiator ended up winning Best Picture back in 2000. Napoleon has been in the Cannes Film Festival conversation at one point, and it was, but it became clear that wouldn't happen when its fall release plans. It is still early, but expect Taurus, Venice, and Toronto to chase this pick, as well as New York, whose September 29th through October 15th date falls closest to the calendar to Thanksgiving. Deadline revealed last week that Denis Villeneuve's directed Dune sequel will unlikely make its bow at Venice, as did the original, because of the gap between Venice and the film's November 3rd release date. A New York Film Festival bow seems most likely for that film. Directed by Scott from a screenplay by David Chapper, Napoleon tells the story of the French emperor and the military leader's origins and swift, ruthless climb to emperor that is viewed through the prism of his addictive and often volatile relationship with his wife and one true love, Josephine. The film captures Napoleon's famous battles, relentless ambition, and astounding strategic mind as an extraordinary military leader and more visionary. An Apple Studio production, in conjunction with Scott Free Productions, Napoleon is produced by Scott, Kevin Walsh, Mark Huffman, with Phoenix, with Michael Prussian, Adrian Elliott serving as EPs. Napoleon and Killers of the Flower Moon give the 3-year-old Apple original films 2 prime entities in the awards release after it became the first streamer to win the Best Picture Oscar for Coda 2 years ago. Okay, let's talk about this. This is big. This is very, very, very big for a couple of reasons. Number one is the piece was making mention. You now have 2 big movies in Killers of the Flower Moon and now Napoleon. Number 2, you're having a biopic that could win Joaquin Phoenix if it's done correctly, and Ridley Scott is a fantastic director. You don't have to say that. His second Oscar in 3 years. Number 3, if you look at the trend, okay, over the past several years, and I was talking about musical biopics, but you can even say other biopics too. You can go back, as early as 1983 when Ben Kingsley won for Gandhi, even though it wasn't as prevalent as it is today. Steve Jobs, all of these other films. I mean, look at The Social Network, which, by the way, guys, I will be pre-recording, and you guys will get that on Wednesday. I'm going to be going to see Air and Super Mario. I'm going to be doing a double feature with that. And so you guys will get that on Wednesday. So I'm going to pre-record that and take care of that for you. And I haven't forgotten about The Mandalorian. But back to Napoleon. This looks fantastic. It's another big budget war film. So the last point I'll say on this is this. I think that the fact that we are now getting another Ridley Scott film that is going to be fantastic. Okay, because don't forget he came out with two a couple years ago. Okay, he came out with The Last Duel and he came out with House of Gucci. Neither one were that well received, but they were still received well. All of that being said, Scott's a fantastic director. I have no doubt in my mind he can put it all together. Okay? I have no doubt in my mind he can put it all together. And I think that if he does, this could be another huge hit. Wouldn't it be fascinating, guys? Think about this for a minute. Wouldn't it be fascinating if Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon were both up for Best Picture? Interesting. It has that touch to it because of course Coda ended up winning a couple of years ago. Anyways, I can't wait. And the last thing I'll say before I finish this, it's getting a theatrical release. Yes. So I think this is going to do fantastic. And once people see it, it's really going to get things that the juice is flowing for the award season. So the fact that Dune's not going to be there, it really helps. So what do you guys think about this? Did you even know they were making a Napoleon movie? Do you like the casting of Joaquin Phoenix? Will you go see it when it does come out? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody. Okay, so we go from things in the future. I'm going to take from blacks for the past. I shouldn't say love. I like remakes. I like remakes that are really good. I'm going to be talking about a film now that the rights have changed. And this, it's one of the corniest movies ever made, but one of the funniest movies ever made. And I say funny in a good way. And I'm talking about Street Fighter. So anybody who grew up with video games, yours truly, played Street Fighter all the time. This is an absolute blast. I can't. If this is anything like the original was with Jean-Claude Van Damme, look out. Yeah. So he says, Coco says, "Woo, that was my dad's jam." Yeah. This is. I think this is going to be so much fun. So as it stands, so this comes from THR. Street Fighter, the television rights, the film and television rights go to Legendary. Now, Legendary is that production company that put out Kong versus Godzilla and a couple of others. So that's going to be interesting. Legendary is ready to unleash a sonic boom with the studio acquiring the film and television rights to the classic beat-em-up game Street Fighter. The studio will work with video game company Capcom on future projects. Street Fighter is one of the most enduring fighting video games franchises of all time. It began life in the 1987 game Street Fighter and hit a high watermark with Street Fighter II in 1991 that spawned countless special editions and remakes. In all, the franchise has sold 49 million units worldwide, with a new installment, Street Fighter VI, due out on June 2nd. It is known for its memorable cast, Ryu, Ken, Chun-Li, Guile, and M. Bison, all whom have various sounds and moves. And sounds as Hadouken that make it memorable. I didn't do that justice. I'm sorry, guys, but you get it. Hollywood has made moves in Street Fighter in the past, with Universal releasing an ill-fated 1994 film starring Jean-Claude Van Damme as Colonel Guile and um, Raul Julia, as pictured there, who played M. Bison. Sorry, guys. There we go. A little technical difficulty. Sorry about that. Um, okay, and it started. So more than a decade later, 20th Century Fox released Street Fighter: Legend of Chun Li, which starred Christina Krellick in the title role. Like its predecessor, it was a commercial and critical bomb. An assortment of animated adaptations have all made their way to the small screen. Legendary, which has a film distribution deal with Sony, has Dune Part 2 due out on November 3rd. Its deal for Street Fighter comes as a video game adaptation, has found success in recent years, with Paramount's Sonic film, Sony's Uncharted, and HBO's The Last of Us, all cutting through to various degrees. And on Friday, Universal will try its luck with the Super Mario Brothers for the first time in 30 years. That Nintendo will be teaming up and has had a Hollywood studio to put out one of its prized possessions on the big screen. So let's talk about this real quick. I can't wait. This is going to be hilarious and great if it actually works. So Coco was asking, you ever see the Mortal Kombat movie? Oh yeah, I have. I've even seen the sequel, Annihilation. It was so bad. Although I'll be honest with you, I think it kind of compared to the Street Fighter, it's kind of neck and neck there. I don't know. It's got to be really close in that respect. But this is interesting because I think that I'm really curious to see what they could do. Um, who knows? Now, I always talk about fads, and when I talk about fads, it's because fads are what Hollywood is driven on. Right now, in the last 5 years, we have seen a lot, and I suspect in the future we're going to be seeing a lot more of video games. Ever since The Last of Us has came out, you have now seen video game adaptations try to be put to small screen. You had, of course, the Uncharted movie with Tom Holland. You had, you know, just Tomb Raider a couple years back with Alicia Vikander. You've had all these franchises trying to actually reboot these things. I think, and I could be totally wrong, it would be interesting to do like look at G.I. Joe. I got laughed at the other night. I love G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. I love it. But the original was good. The second one was a complete stinker. Anyways, getting back to this, I think this could be really good. Call me crazy, but if it's done right and if it's written correctly, I think it could be done really, really well. Now, obviously, you're not going to bring back the cast there. Of course, the late Raul Julia, I think that was one of his best roles next to the Addams Family. But you're obviously not bringing Jean-Claude Van Damme. I think this could do. I think it could be interesting if the stories are told correctly. So I don't know if you could do it in the movie though. Maybe not. It depends on what kind of things that they would want to put together. Now, like I said, they have done Kong versus Godzilla and everything else. So maybe this is right up their alley. That corny, cheesy, type of thing. And they can put it out on anywhere they want. Right? So now that they've got those deals, who knows? By the way, did you see it? I haven't gotten around to it. I really like. I think I gotta look to see when my Apple TV Plus thing expires. But yeah, it's one of those things where I had to cut back a little bit, so I may actually just wait on that and do somebody else's. Yeah, it does look good. But even Tetris. To your point, that's a great pull, Coco. Even Tetris is just you're seeing a lot of these retro right now is in, so it's really interesting. I'm curious to see what happens with this. I mean, we're not going to hear anything for years, probably down the road, but I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with this. Anyways, what do you guys think? If they made another, first of all, did you ever play Street Fighter growing up? If you have, who was your favorite character? Who did you play with in the video game? Do you play Street Fighter now? Would you be interested in a Street Fighter television series or film? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody. Okay, so we got one final story in the day, and this is the money story. This is the one everybody's been waiting for. So we'll get right to it. So we have a film coming out next month. Okay, and that's Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But that's not it. That's not what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. Believe it or not, it's Superman Legacy. So here's the thing. According to Variety, okay, James Gunn's Superman will have, quote, quite a different feel or tones from Guardians, the director says. Making a good Marvel movie after Endgame is hard, which, and I'll get to, and we'll talk about as we go along through this. James Gunn has written the script for his upcoming Superman Legacy and is currently putting together a casting list and audition material. He also is about to embark on a worldwide press tour for his final movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. The writer-director recently told Rolling Stone that his Superman movie isn't going to feel like a Guardians movie. I've learned so much from making these movies, Gunn said about his Marvel franchise, but it's not like Superman is going to have the same exact vibe as a Guardians movie. It's actually quite different. What's the tones of Gunn's Superman Legacy remains to be seen. The tentpole is focusing on a younger iteration of the superhero than the last one on the big screen, played by Henry Cavill. After his Guardians Volume 3 press duties are over, Gunn will transition full time into his new gig as a co-CEO of the new DC universe, which will include films including Supergirl and Batman and Robin. I really want Marvel to keep making good movies, he said about his exit. I think it's really hard to, in the wake of the blip. There's this worldwide universal event that happens, and in truth, everybody will be stark raving mad at this point. So it's hard to write stories in the wake of that, which is why Guardians has been easier because they're all set outside of it a little bit. The blip, of course, is referring to the climax of Avengers Infinity War, where Thanos snapped his fingers and half the population vanished. Of course, the missing population came back in Endgame, and we had that big third act. The end of Endgame posed a different challenge for Gunn as it concluded with the Guardians members linking up with Chris Hemsworth's Thor. Marvel chose to have that ending in editing, Gunn said, and I didn't think it was going to be there. Endgame came right out after, and I decided to do a Guardians again. So I didn't have much to say in what was in Endgame. And then it came out, so I was like, what am I going to do? Fortunately for Gunn, Taika Waititi's Thor Love and Thunder quickly did away with Thor and the Guardians teaming up indefinitely. Thor had his own film, leaving the door open for Gunn to write Volume 3, without Thor as originally intended. Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige told me, Taika's going to do Thor, so we'll have the Guardians in it. He's like, thank goodness. To be honest, Thor was never going to be in this movie. Taika took a bullet for me because I was not going to have him in here. I was just going to start up and there's no Thor. With his Guardians franchise coming to an end and a whole new DC universe about to begin, worried about superhero fatigue? I think there is such a superhero fatigue. I think there is such a thing as superhero fatigue, Gunn told Rolling Stone. I think it doesn't have anything to do with superheroes. It has to do with the kind of stories that get to be told. And when you lose your eye on the ball, which is character, we love Superman, we love Batman, we love Iron Man, because they're incredible characters that we have in our hearts. And if it's just a bunch of nonsense on screen, it gets really boring. I get fatigued by both spectacle films, by the grind of not having an emotional, grounded story, Gunn said. It doesn't have anything to do with what the superhero movies are or are not. If you don't have a story at the base of it, it's just watching things bash each other, no matter how clever those bashing things are. No matter how clever the designs are and the visual effects are, it just gets fatiguing. And I think it's very, very real. So, of course, Guardians comes out May 5th, and Superman Legacy is slated for a July 11th release date in 2025. Now, let me talk to you a couple things. So, let me get to a couple comments here. He said, Coco says, yes, I forgot his name, but my dad would always pick the guy with 1,000 arms. Okay. Yeah, I know exactly. So, he was from India. I don't remember off the top of my head. If anybody in the comments wants to chime in, but I do know who you're referring. He spit fire out of his mouth, I think. So, do you guys in Real Talks have a source, or do you guys find your information from the roundup? So, I take a lot of my information comes from the trades because I trust them. So, Variety, THR, the Wrap. Now, that's to say, I actually have a couple of people that I speak to. So I know a couple. So Jeremy Fowler, for example, is from the Wrap. He does fantastic work on the Wrap. Kit Stone, she's a freelancer, but she's a fantastic journalist. Destiny Jackson, she's actually at the Oscars. She works for Deadline. So I do have people, we talk about, and I have, Matthew Anderson, whom we've seen on the show, I'm sure, for the Oscars and the SAGs and everything else. So I have a couple of sources, but mostly for the most part, it's the trades. But yeah, so that being said, this is interesting. This is going to be a fun Superman movie because this is going to. So I'm going to equate it to this. This is going to be like the Batman was. Whenever we had seen Batman over and over and over, okay, we had always seen a Batman that had been, he was already established, right? We had never seen like a Matt Reeves Batman that was just starting out. And that's what made the Robert Pattinson movie, I was watching it the other day, amazing. Okay. Nonetheless, this is going to be a different Superman. This is going to be a completely different, a younger, more balanced Superman. He isn't going to have been Superman for, up teen years. So he's going to be learning and doing things. I think this is going to be fun. He is right about one thing. Well, he's right about a lot of things, but one of the things he's right about, okay, is when he talks about superhero fatigue. It's not the stories because look, we all love Batman, we all love Superman, we all love Iron Man. But I will drive it home to the day I go. Okay? It's about story. You can have the greatest actors in the world in a horrible story, and they can only produce the product as well as possible. On the flip side of the coin, you can have the greatest story in the world and really bad actors, and it's not going to be that good. The story is so vitally important because even James saying the quote that he did, okay, I get fatigued by spectacle films, by the grind. Or he says, basically, because these are incredible characters that we have in our hearts. I get fatigued by most spectacle films. If it doesn't have anything to do with the superhero movies, if you don't have a story at the base of it, you're just watching things bash each other, no matter how clever those things are, and no matter how good the visual effects is. And he's so right. He is so right. Because I don't want to see a story that is just, rock'em sock'em. I don't want to see rock'em sock'em robots. I want to see something of substance. And that's what I think this is going to be. I really do. I think it's going to be something that it's quality. And it's all going to be depending on the casting and who they get. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But Coco says the Batman was so good with its tone and everything. I'm just imagining how the Superman movie will play out. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because the thing is that it's one of those things that this is going to be a completely different version and a completely different idea. Um, One of the things that Batman did so well, is not rehash the whole Martha Wayne and Bruce or Thomas Wayne death. You know, um, when you're able to do something like that, it's going to be great. I really truly believe this is going to be a fantastic movie. And of course, we have this coming out, and we've got a couple other movies coming out in 2025. But this one, to have it be a different tone, that's the key thing, because we don't want a dark Superman. So it will be curious. It'll be very interesting to see. The biggest thing I'll say is this: casting. When you're talking about casting, okay, when you're talking about casting a movie, it has to be that perfect person or close to it, because you write it and you do it, and it's so important. I think this is going to be great. And the last thing I'll say on this is this: it's slated right in July. That is the cream of the crop when it comes to um, times. That's just because it's right after. It's July. It's right after the 4th of July. So everybody is going to be going to see this. Now, was it a coincidence? Yeah. I mean, that was his father's birthday, but yeah, this looks so good. I can't wait. As we get more stories and everything else, I will definitely bring this to you on the roundup and in future shows. Okay. As I said, it was a late show. I hope it's not too late where you guys are. Um, so I got some exciting news. Um, and it's not too. So here's the thing. At the end of the day, so I have a Patreon. I was talking to you guys about that. I finally got it restructured today. So I'm going to be pushing now every time we talk. You guys are going to be getting a little bit about the Patreon. So there are two levels. I wanted to make it absolutely affordable because I know prices are super high and everything else. So there's two levels. We have one level, it's $5 a month. Okay. That's a gallon of gas. Okay. But for that $5, you're going to be getting a video, and it's going to be called Mob Mondays. As I said before, this is going to be one of the premiere series that I didn't get to do there, so I'm going to put it on there. I'm going to be doing one mobster movie every single month for you guys. Okay. The first one, and it's, by the way, it's an older video. So, I mean, obviously the set is a little different now. But nonetheless, we're going to be talking about The Departed. And I sit down with Brad Rochefort, and it's his favorite movie. And we talked for nearly an hour about it. And so every single month, you guys are going to be getting a brand new video on Mob Mondays. Fantastic. And for $10 a month. So $10 a month is double that, but you guys are going to be getting two videos. You're going to be getting Mob Mondays, and you're going to be getting Rewatch Wednesdays. Rewatch Wednesdays is so Rewatch Wednesdays is movies that I've seen, okay, that I have not seen in a long time. The first video that I did with one of my friends, is Steve Jobs, Michael Fassbender, Kate Winslet, who's nominated for the Academy Award. Of course, Seth Rogen playing Steve Wozniak, directed by Danny Boyle. You know, just written by Aaron Sorkin. Unbelievable. Moneyball, A Few Good Men. So you guys are going to be getting that video for $10 a month, and you guys, we're going to keep giving you, all these videos, and there's a lot of movies. So but one a month, and that's going to get that going. You can find, if you don't want to do it on the computer and you want to, go through the Patreon on your phone, that's great. If you go to that my Twitter handle, that little box up there, just click that link and they'll send you right to the Patreon channel. And you can sign up on your phone or tablet or whatever it is. Um, yeah. So we got that. And yeah. So this tonight was a late show. I wanted to actually get, see if there was any difference to, for a few other people to actually climb on and watch, because I know during the day, like I said, it was a little problematic. And so, Social Network, I'm going to be recording that tomorrow. I'm going to watch it tonight, and I'm going to pre-record it tomorrow. There is going to be no show on Wednesday. You guys are going to actually get the Social Network, the perfect movie for April. Of course, that's Jesse Eisenberg, Andrew Garfield, Justin Timberlake. It's all about Facebook. You guys, I don't have to go through it. That's going to be fun. The Mandalorian. Now, I know I haven't done this week. I'm going to sit down and pre-record I've already watched it. I'm going to sit down and pre-record the thoughts on it. You guys will get that on Wednesday as well. And on Wednesday, I'm going to be going to see Air and Super Mario. I'm going to do a double feature. And yep. So Coco's saying Mario movie on Wednesday. Yes, indeed. And I will be doing a double feature. I'm going to be going to see the Mario movie and that, so I can see. So Thursday, maybe Friday, because I want to give everybody a chance to see it. Okay. We'll do a spoiler cast. It will be all in one day. It'll be two different spoiler casts. Maybe I'll try and get somebody to come on and we'll talk about that. And that's going to be a blast. So I need to catch up on Mando. Yeah. So I finally caught up. I'm up to date now. I liked it. I mean, that's all I'm going to say until the review. I mean, it's been out for almost a week, so so going to see the Mario movie on Thursday. Yeah, enjoy. I can't wait. So this is going to be, and this is what I was talking about with video game movies and adaptations and everything else. And they had this in the work for a while, but you're now seeing a lot more of it. And I suspect, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see a Street Fighter movie with, the last story, one of the stories we were doing next 4 or 5 years. I wouldn't be shocked because you want to capitalize on that right now. Whether it's good or bad, it's still going to make money because you have those people that are gamers. You have those people that remember this. You have all of this stuff. So it's one of those things where you're gonna make money, and even if it doesn't do well over here, you're gonna make a lot of money overseas. So I think that's gonna be interesting. But yeah, that's it for today. Um, and by the way, Coco, I saw your comment earlier. Thank you about that. So that's what I try and do. I'll talk to you in a couple minutes, maybe, about it. I mean, so every story that I do, basically, I'll divvy it up and put it up there individually for you guys. And it's one of those things where that way, in case you don't want to stick around for the full 45-minute stream, you can just watch individual videos. Probably the biggest game franchise finally getting a movie. Probably the biggest game franchise finally getting a movie because we don't count that old one. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so I did a whole presentation about 25 years ago about the video game systems. And it's amazing. If you actually look into it, maybe I might do a video on it. It's fascinating to see how, because Nintendo really saved it. Nintendo really saved the video game industry from what we know. So it's one of those things where if you know the story behind it, it's like, wow, really? Yeah. So it's fantastic, and I'm sure you're going to see several more to come. Anyways, guys, that's it. That's all for tonight. Do the 3 things you need to do: be careful, be safe, and have a great day tomorrow. And I will see you guys tomorrow, and have a good one. I'm David Steele, and you have been watching Real Talks. Bye bye, guys.